rocking the health world through the power of radio. It's the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Last hour, we were covering the outrageous story of North Carolina government in support of the American Diabetes Association, the American Dietetics Association, the State Board of Dietitians, going after a blogger. A blogger! What did he do? Well, he simply talked about his nutritional way that he healed from diabetes and obesity with no drugs and no artificial sweeteners. And it obviously angered somebody on the state board there. And you know how I am all for freedom, liberty, communication, the First Amendment. And we're bringing on a friend of mine now, who is a champion for the First Amendment. In fact, he is the creator and editor of Doctor's Prescription for Healthy Living. You know it as Healthy Living Magazine. I've got it linked up in the blog notes. He also happens to be running for Congress. And I've officially endorsed him as of last Friday right here on this show. I reissued that endorsement on Sunday on my show on GCN, and I wanted to bring him back up so everybody here in the Natural News Radio Robert Scott Bell Show audience can get to know this guy, because he's a great man. And in the District 33, which is kind of the Hollywood, Los Angeles area of California, there's a guy named Henry Waxman. I call him the Weasel because he has never met a dietary supplement that he liked. And I'm just, over the years, I'm just so fed up with this guy. We need to send him home. We need to get David Steinman into office. And David, so glad you can join me again here on the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Oh, it's great to be with you today, Robert. I hope you're doing well.
Doing well. Very fired up for you. Now, you're running as a member of the Green Party, and just reiterate to all my listeners, you know I'm a Ron Paul kind of guy, but I am not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Libertarian. I'm not a Green. I'm not a red, yellow, whatever. I'm a guy who says, what is the man or woman? What is the level of integrity? What do they stand for? David, you've stood for health freedom for so long. You have written and spoken out about this with your magazine, Healthy Living, and I think it would be a wonderful thing for you to replace Henry Waxman in Congress there.
Well, this isn't really Henry Waxman's district. He's been in office for 36 years, and he doesn't even live in California anymore, much less the 33rd district, which goes from Malibu in the north here in Los Angeles to Palos Verdes in the south, and includes Santa Monica, Venice, Pacific Palisades, Redondo, Hermosa, Manhattan. There are a lot of alternative and complementary medicine doctors, naturopaths, chiropractors, gong healing. Yes. It's all here, and Henry has been one of the biggest enemies of health and medical freedom in the United States Congress. He has actually empowered the Federal Trade Commission, as well as the Food and Drug Administration, but particularly the FTC, to go after nutrition companies in legislation that he slipped into other bills, amendments that he slipped into other bills. He's actually tried to empower the FTC to write its own regulations for nutrition companies, I tell you, without any government oversight.
No, it's horrific. Here's a guy, if you're going to represent even your district, even when it was changed prior to redistricting, I mean, there was a lot of people there that love health freedom issues, medical freedom issues, natural doctors, organic foods, lots of farmers markets there in Santa Monica. And I'm thinking if they knew more about who was running, and that is you, they would be all solidly behind you. Indeed, other issues, of course, environmental issues. We talked last Sunday as well about the nuclear issue and how I have called, because ever since Fukushima happened, we've been nailing it on the show from almost day one about the dangers of nuclear power. And they say, oh, it's safe. Yeah, until something goes wrong, then it's, life terminating and could be a planet killer. So we have a lot of alignment here in what we'd like to see happen in promotion, not only of health freedom, but real environmental awareness, practical solutions that can be done even on or especially at the local level.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for bringing up the nuclear issue. I just want to say on the issue of health and medical freedom, we are all libertarians. This is something that's as tantamount to our rights as the right to free speech and as other constitutionally guaranteed rights. And we have got, if we're going to really make a quantum improvement in the nation's health, we must get to the point where people can practice preventive medicine and where that is part of our healthcare system. And so he really has been against that. That's one area that I've just totally opposed what he's doing.
Yes.
But on the area of, one of the interesting things is when you don't have any skin in the game, you don't really think about the future. Unlike Henry, I have 3 kids in public schools. I have a business here. I grew up in the 33rd District. My Freedom Press, which you know because you write for our magazine, Robert, The
Yes.
Healthy Living magazine is a nationwide magazine. We employ some 20 people, so I've been a job creator. I also volunteer here for the LA County Fire Department. I just received a conditional employment with them to go to the firefighting academy and fight fires. I'm really proud of that. I have skin in the game.
Yes.
Getting to the nuclear issue, we have a nuclear plant called San Onofre that is less than 100 miles from the 33rd District. It's in San Diego County. It is situated on a fault line, and it is already leaking. The reactors have been shut down for the last few months because of this leak. But when you don't have skin in the game, you don't think about what if we get a huge earthquake, which is not an unreasonable thing to think about here in California. We get them all the time. We just had a magnitude 3.9, I think it was, in San Juan Capistrano, less than 30 miles from San Onofre. But if we get a large one on the level of Fukushima, this coastline has the potential to be devastated by the nuclear release. Devastated.
Well, and there's already evidence that what's happened in Fukushima has impacted the west coast of the United States and Canada, and of course even down to Southern California where you are. And once again, you've been an open and outspoken advocate of natural, safe solutions, even in your magazine, to bring these things out. And that's, so much of what we call citizen journalism as well, even though it's professionally done, and bringing out the things that are often not, let's say, endorsed or even allowed by what's considered the official media out there. So you've been a very powerful and positive renegade in health and healing. And I say this in a very, a positive and loving way, what you're doing, that you're getting information out that is so vital and valuable. And particularly any of you that are listeners to the Robert Scott Bell Show that live in Southern California, if you're not already plugged into what David's doing there, this is the time. And we have the links up, by the way, at robertscottbell.com, Steinman2012.com as well, I believe, is the website.
Well, we are going to win. I'm very confident about that. But I have been the only candidate who has called for decommissioning the San Onofre nuclear plant. And there's a method to my madness on this. One of the really interesting things about the Southern California area is we have abundant geothermal resources. And these are right beneath the Salton Sea. What I think we need to do here in Southern California is set an example for the nation to make us energy independent. Mm-hmm. The way we can do that is to harness these geothermal resources, which are already being used but not on a large enough scale. These can drive turbines just as well as nuclear. The difference is they're safe. It's renewable.
Yes.
And I want to see a smart grid built from these resources in the Salton Sea into the Los Angeles basin. This will create tens of thousands of jobs for the local economy. It will put machine shops to work. It will put architects to work. It will put gardeners to work. It will put people who do all sorts of things that need to work with their hands as well as with their brains to work in this district and in this region.
Sure.
And this is because I have a vision for becoming fossil-free. I want to say one last thing about nuclear, because I know that a lot of your listeners, Bob, are libertarian. The biggest experiment in socialism and energy today is the nuclear industry. It would not exist if it were not for the Price-Anderson Act, which means that all of the American people insure the nuclear industry.
Yes.
And that's because the free market would never be able to afford the cost of a cataclysmic event like Fukushima, and the nuclear industry can't get insurance in the free market. It is the biggest example of socialism in energy that we have in the United States today.
Yep, it's called corporate welfare, and you're exactly right. We've covered that on this, and I absolutely wholeheartedly second what you've just said, is that nuclear energy is not a legitimate option because it could not exist in that free market. It had to be underwritten by the American people, unbeknownst to them, because nobody, as you said, would underwrite it. It's too damn dangerous. So very good point. If we're talking about geothermal energy, if people say, well, that really can't do anything. Well, look at Iceland, for instance. I know it's a small area, but consider how many people live in that area that are dependent upon energy and are not looking to import it. They have geothermal things they've tapped into, so it's not like it hasn't been done.
Well, it is being done throughout, the city of Reno in Nevada is going to be eventually powered completely by geothermal. Geothermal is the fastest growth industry now in the state of Nevada. We have these vast resources, and We all want to be energy independent. We know it's important to keep money in our economy, in the local economy. Now, we're not going to get to energy independence. We're going to be on fossil fuels for a long time. And we kind of have to be paradoxical here. We're going to have to balance what we're doing with natural gas,
sure,
and with renewable. But if
renewable
we look to grow up.
David, if we look at all of those other sources that have been used, whether they're called fossil fuel or whatever they're called, the reality is every president, I don't know, since, who was it? Did Nixon start it? Did Carter start it? We said energy independence. And it didn't matter whether it was Republican or Democrat administration. They'd all say it. And then turns out we become more dependent, not less. So we can no longer believe those people that are for some kind of world bureaucratic oligarchy running these things and controlling it and not allowing the market innovations, as we say, to come in and look to replace it, like with geothermal or other methods that are out there. There certainly are a lot of things that have been suppressed openly and actively because of the government corporate partnership on a global scale.
Well, we would be more competitive throughout the world with our renewable resources if we enforced and stood up for fair trade in the world. What most presidents have done is, including Bill Clinton, is gone for free trade, and that has been a race to the bottom when it comes to environmental and labor standards.
Sure.
But what I've learned in talking with people who have been in China and talking with environmental activists in Iran is that throughout the world, and particularly in China, people are waking up to the fact that they have rights. In China, one of the biggest movements today for democracy is when factories go into a town and suddenly their skies become dark, their water becomes poison. People revolt against this. They rebel against it, and factories are made to move. We need to empower people throughout the world to stand up for their environmental and labor rights and raise the level. Unfortunately, Henry Waxman has a very mixed record on trade. He's voted a number of times recently for free trade instead of for fair trade.
Well, and let's be honest, David.
We lose jobs here in the United States.
The free trade, the CAFTA, the NAFTA, the GATT, I mean, all of these are just kind of phony names. It's like an Orwellian use of language. It's free trade. No, it's not. It's managed trade, managed to the benefit of the multinational corporations with no allegiance to any nation or state. That is not free trade unless you're one of them. And if you talk about empowering the people, which is what we're all about here, the idea that the people can gather together and throw these bums out like we're all trying to do, for instance, on the GMO issue right now in California. 800,000 plus signatures to get a referendum on there, and Monsanto's threatening to sue every state that goes against their ability to not label that which they think is so great. If it's so great, label it. People will buy it, but they know the truth.
Oh, absolutely. I've worked with Pam Larry. In fact, she, the founder of the Label GMO movement here in California, it will be on the ballot in November, and I'm a big supporter of that.
Talked to her last week about it as well, and so she's terrific. And again, another area where you are such a good fit for that district and to go to Congress, and that's why I'm openly supporting you and wanting everybody in the Natural News Radio and Robert Scott Bell Show audience to know about you.
Well, with labeling, I wrote Diet for a Poisoned Planet, which was the first book to actually dissect the food supply, kind of turn it into a naked lunch, to coin a phrase from William Burroughs, and show people all the different chemicals in their hot dogs, in their lima beans, in their oranges. And then I wrote the Safe Shopper's Bible, and it showed people all the ingredients in household cleaning products. One of the ways that we vote every day is in the marketplace.
Yes.
And my goal is to empower people. Congress follows, it does not lead. And one of the greatest things I can do in Washington is to empower people at the grassroots level to lead, to make these choices in the marketplace, to vote with their dollars. And when we talk about labeling GMOs, like you said, if it's great and the people want it, they will buy it.
Exactly.
And if they don't want it, they won't buy it.
Well, it's obvious to us here, David, that they won't. That's why they're fighting so desperately. Listen, can you stick around for another segment here?
Well, let's do it.
All right. David Steinman, creator and founder and editor of Healthy Living magazine. We've got the links up at robertscottbell.com. Running for Congress in the 33rd District of California to unseat a guy who doesn't like supplements, Henry Waxman. We're all for him here. David Steinman is with me. More after this. All the links are up in the blog today at robertscottbell.com, including the Steinman 2012, Steinman 2012.com. If you'd like to support, if you're in the Los Angeles area, support this guy. Why support David Steinman? Well, you've been hearing why we are here officially supporting him on the Robert Scott Bell Show. And David, the question then becomes, why a Green Party candidate, right? People, because everybody's got these labels and they freak out about labels. Oh, you're not a Republican. Oh, you are a Republican. Oh, you're not a Libertarian. Oh, you are. You know how I'm saying? And I always go past that to the person, the human. Talk to me about the reason you made the decision in that district, because I think it was a brilliant decision, but I want you to tell everybody why.
Well, I've always, like you, Bob, I've always been an independent. I registered as a Green in late 2011 because of the party's 10 key values. And what I liked about it is I could take these 10 key values and make sense out of them to appeal to everyone. I don't want to be the Republican candidate, the Democratic candidate, or the Green candidate. I want to be the people's candidate. So let me give you an example of some of the values and how I'm using them. The Green Party believes in accountability and sustainability. Now, when I think of accountability and taxes, I think like this. When I go to Washington, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that government is spending the people's money wisely. I'm going to go there with an eye on, for example, we know right now hearings have been held this week on the GSA, the General Services Administration, and their $1 million parties in Las Vegas, okay? And this is not just one isolated incident. The government is spending our money. It needs to spend it wisely. I'm also a businessman, and I believe in the role that government can play. I think there can be a strategic partnership, and I've seen it work. I've also seen it not work. And
have you seen it work on the federal level or the local level?
I think, in my campaign, everything has to come from the grassroots up.
Right.
For example, one of the ways to stimulate, publishing Healthy Living magazine as I do, I'm very interested in brick and mortar retailers because my magazine goes to thousands of health food stores across the country. And my advertisers depend on a vital brick and mortar.
Sure. And here's the thing about Waxman and others in Congress, that they don't understand their nanny state mentality of trying to protect the people from information about healing has actually damaged and hurt one of the most vital aspects of our economy, the natural health realm, supplement realm, and the stores that sell these through to the public.
Well, we have 10,000 stores in the United States, and they need a healthy retailer atmosphere. Here in the 33rd District, there are a number of ways to stimulate that. I have met with mayors in the local cities like Mike Ginn of Redondo Beach. I've met with mayors in Manhattan Beach and in other areas of the 33rd District as well. And what they tell me is that we need to create more pedestrian-friendly shopping experiences. If people feel I have to get in my car, I won't find a parking space, the traffic will be terrible. We all know about traffic in Los Angeles. They're not going to go. But when it becomes a warm and inviting experience where people are walking around, they can go from shop to shop and walk. They can ride their bikes along the beach where we are, where the beach cities. People start to shop more. They go to different cities. They enjoy the experience. So it's very important to work with local government to create more of a pedestrian-friendly atmosphere.
Sure. Well, and here's the emphasis I see, that local movement. And, we talked about think globally, act locally. For years talked about that. But I just ran into a bunch of kids that go to public schools. Now, I'm not a big fan of public schools because I see what they've taught kids for a long time. But here I saw a great innovation. There was a school in West Broward County and Fort Lauderdale, and they're actually growing organic. They have Project Primal. They're growing organic on the property. The principals support it. They didn't go to the federal government for permission. Even the state level, they're just doing it locally. The parents are involved. This is where the solutions are happening, right at the ground where you are.
Well, it has to come from the grassroots up. That's why I'm meeting with mayors and talking and go to farmers markets. We've got. Did you know, for example, that for the first time in American history in a long time, the number of family farms in America is growing? Another interesting fact.
Yes, and it's exciting, yes.
People talk something like 10 times more at a farmer's market than in a supermarket.
Yes.
So when we have farmers markets and we get people to start to come to downtown and they can find a place to park, they go to the shops to buy other things. This stimulates the local economy. When we have a smart grid and when we have local energy coming from our geothermal resources and a smart grid that we're building, this creates local jobs. Another thing, we all know that the housing market in many key areas, including Nevada, Los Angeles, Florida, has collapsed. Home values are down 25, 30, 35%. Right now, there is no outreach to homeowners to empower them to modify those loans. And one of the ways that we can free up a lot of local money, and which I will do when I'm in Washington, is empower homeowners to go to their bank and modify their loans from the 5 and 6% interest rates they're paying now. And remember, the banks are paying less than 1%
oh, sure.
for that
I mean,
money.
and all the bailouts that continually occur through the Federal Reserve, whether it's a Republican or Democrat administration, we've seen the existing power structure, whether it's Romney or Obama, supported by Goldman Sachs and the international bankers. So, again, local solutions here I like. Stop bailing out the bankers. Let the people have some stake in what they're involved in. Listen, I want to ask you a question about the support you're getting, because some people will say, okay, yes, a Green Party, that's great, David, we like you, but come on, it's only Democrats and Republicans that get elected with, or a rare independent that gets in there. Talk to me about the support you're getting locally. Are you getting any crossover from other parties? Do you have any celebrity support? What's happening?
Bob, we've gotten a ton of support. Alexander Paul here is a Green Party member. Mike Feinstein, the former mayor of Santa Monica, has endorsed me. The Organic Consumers Association Political Action Committee has endorsed me. Judy Shill's Teens Turning Green has endorsed me. Pam Larry from the Label GMO Project has endorsed me. The great John Lee Hooker, two-time Emmy Grammy nominee,
yes,
has endorsed me. We've gotten a lot of support from the naturopathic community. I am drawing support from Republicans, Democrats, Independents, as well as Greens. And I think the reason for that is when people meet me and when I talk to them, they realize that, like you, Bob, I'm not interested in being a spokesperson, whether it's the Green, the Democratic. I'm not going to be a spokesperson for the party. I'm going to be a spokesperson for the people. And people get that. They hear it in my voice. They see it in my face.
Yes.
I've put myself on the line. 3 weeks ago, Santa Monica college students were protesting 500-fold rate increases for their tuition. And this was national news. They were pepper sprayed. The guy that was one of the people that was pepper sprayed in that protest was me and my campaign manager, Namika Lozzi. In fact, it was my picture that was in the news on the Washington Post, USA Today, Drudge.
Wow. It's a good thing, David, that you know about homeopathy and natural remedies and silver to counteract the pepper spray.
I used the silver. Thank you very much to Sovereign Silver. Thank you very much.
Yes.
But as a matter of fact, it was not a pleasant experience.
No.
But I was there to speak out for the students because they needed someone there who would say, look, this isn't right. You're raising tuition. You're not letting them into a public meeting. It was outrageous. It really was. And that Friday, a few days after the pepper spray incident, the Board of Trustees for Santa Monica College, and I had spent the day before on CNN. I had been on Mike Medved's show. I'd been speaking out with the president of the Associated Students, Harrison Wills, on national media. I spoke to AP. I spoke to Reuters. A few days later, the board backed down.
Nice.
They said there has to be a better way.
Medved, he's not going to be friendly.
500%.
Michael Medved's not going to be a friendly guy to you.
You know what? When I speak to people, I don't care if they're friendly or unfriendly. He gave us the forum to do it. And you're right. He kind of misconstrued what was going on.
He does
blamed
that.
the students instead of realizing the students were being shut out of a public meeting, which violated the state sunlight laws or the Brown Act, as it's known. But the point is I'm going to be the people's representative. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Libertarian, Democrat, a Green, whether you're black, white, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. I am for people being empowered and for working from the grassroots up. I've run a business. I've created jobs. I'm the only candidate who's done that. I volunteer here. I have volunteered to put myself on the line to learn how to fight fires, to become a applicant trainee, passed all my tests. Thanks to natural living, by the way, and supplements that I passed all these tests. There's a physical. You have to run a mile in a certain time limit. You have to pass your medical. And I have 3 kids in public schools. I've gone through the pain that people have experienced. And I have ideas that will work. Instead of just talking in slogans,
yes,
I'm giving a practical plan to create more prosperity through the 33rd District by empowering people, by caring. You know, you have to be here and talk to people and listen to them. And I'm a great listener. So when our internal polling has shown us that we are drawing from all sides, when people hear the message, for example, I'll just give you a great example. Student debt crisis. No one has brought forward a solution. And I looked at the student debt crisis and I said, we can not only help students to get out of the debt crisis that they're in, but improve our public schools and our communities by asking students to serve their country. You know, we have a very heterogeneous population throughout the country, and people need to feel they're all working together. So what I propose is when kids turn 18, young adults, that they will do things for the community. For example, a kid or young adult, I use the word kid because I'm in my 50s, so I guess I have a right to do that.
I understand what you're saying. I know why.
But when if they have great talent in music or math or English, they will do peer-to-peer mentoring of another student in a local school that needs the help, in a school that needs the help.
Well, I think this kind of thing,
paid for this.
David, I think this kind of thing would happen more naturally if there wasn't so much of a debt crisis, as you say, because everybody is out there just trying to survive to service this so-called debt. We have a debt-based culture in society, and we can talk more about economics another time, but I just wanted to get everybody a sense of who you are, why we're friends, and why I'd like to see you replace Henry the Waxman that I call him here. That's my words. So I'm not putting any words in your mouth, David, but I appreciate you so much in what you're doing. And this is the thing about when people say, well, but I might not agree with this. Get over yourself. Find people of integrity, and then you're going to find solutions are going to happen. There's no one person on the planet that you can put 100% of the time that will agree 100% of the time with another. But that's the thing, the plurality, the aspect of the ability to work together. As you said, David, listen, and enough with the yelling and screaming and going, and the labels. And you are beyond that, and you're doing great work, as you have for many years, with Healthy Living Mag. And by the way, is it healthylivingmag.com? We can send
people healthylivingmag.com, and folks can visit, and it's in over 1,000 health food stores across the country. Just ask for it by name. And we're on Twitter. And you can visit my congressional site, too, David Steinman for Congress 2012 on Facebook or Steinman2012.com. Go beyond party. Put the nation first, put people first. Yes. That's what I stand for. Yep,
and I've got it all linked up there as well, and I look forward to seeing you out next time we're in the same vicinity, and you'll keep us updated as the campaign continues.
Thanks, Robert. Natural, medical, and health freedom will have no better friend in Washington than me. I will fight for our health and medical freedom rights.
Absolutely. That's David Steinman, Steinman2012.com. Coming right back to wrap up the show after this.
Tired of the same boring health talk radio? Then turn up the volume and break off the knob. This is the Robert Scott Bell Show.